Welcome to Counterpoint, where we've made it our mission to share conversations that are honest, unscripted, and grounded in real conversation. We bring people with different perspectives to the same place for open debate and conversation. I'm your host, Ryan Price, and on today's episode, we have Gen Z versus Millennials versus Gen X. Now, let's get into this episode of Counterpoint.
My name is Kim. I'm 49 years old. I was born in 1976 and I am Gen X.
Shannon, 53, Gen X.
My name is Quentin. I'm 30 years old and I'm a millennial.
My name is Katie. I am 31 years old and I am a millennial.
Hello, my name is Darius. I'm 31 and I'm a millennial.
My name is Austin. I'm 24 and I'm a Gen Z.
My name is Destiny. I'm 27 and I'm Gen Z.
I'm Yoana. I'm 21 and I'm Gen Z.
People were happier before smartphones. We'll start by bringing up everyone that agrees now. I'm just gonna start over here, come through, and then we'll bring up our one disagreeer.
Neurodivergence is accepted now. It's a thing. When I was growing up, you were just the weird kid. You were just the weird kid in class who just sat in the back and, So smartphones are great for most everybody. If you need information, again, there's a lot of information overload. I don't think we're necessarily happier before smartphones. I think we were happier before social media. And social media is right at our fingertips. Now, for somebody like me who has ADD, I've had it my whole life, but was only diagnosed 2 years ago. So when somebody says life is easier back then, I'm like, no, try being on the spectrum or neurodivergent. Life was hell. That being said, smartphones are absolutely awful for people with ADD. I think I'd be so much more productive without one.
Okay, and how about you?
I'm glad that we didn't have the technology back then. I mean, yeah, we had to go to the library to do a report and look through encyclopedias or whatever, but I also don't think we were. Yes, when I was 10, I went home by myself and watched the neighbors' kids and whatever. However, every stupid thing I did wasn't recorded on the interwebs forever. Yeah. There is absolutely no digital thumbprint of all the dumb shit I did, and that's probably a very good thing. And I'm happy for that. I think smartphones, social media, whatever, I'm going to bundle it all into one. It's taken a very important key component of being a human out, and it's removed the human factor. We don't communicate effectively anymore. Not just generations, but as humans in total, we have lost connection. And I think it makes everything harder.
Okay, and how about you?
I'm same thing about what you were saying too, and I think that everything's become too easily accessible. There's no hard work in doing anything. So there's this thing called Oura Ring and I've always been against Apple Watches, but I track all my vitals because I do bodybuilding, so it's easy to track everything. There's a study done, I can't remember the percentage of it, but they say anxiety levels actually dropped by some odd percentage when you have a ring versus an Apple Watch, because what you can do is boom, you know exactly what's going on in your everyday life. I can check Snapchat, Facebook, whatever on this. But if it's in your pocket, on your phone, it's harder. Now, if you get rid of your phone, everything goes down. You stop thinking about what's going on outside of your life and start to think about what's going on in. One thing I do every single day, because I'm horrible, ADHD as well, horrible about checking my phone nonstop. I take one time of my day where I'm gonna do something I absolutely do not wanna do, like go out in the stupid cold we get, go for a walk, leave my phone at home, and do absolutely nothing besides think in my own head. And that's the one time I get a good dopamine rush of what I actually needed because I did something hard that day. We're also worried about what is the easiest thing I can do. I can just, boom, done. Like ordering on DoorDash. Why can't you just go drive to get it? It's gonna take you 5 minutes and you have a nice little drive and enjoy yourself and just do your thing.
How many of you have gone this long without looking at your phone?
I'm losing my mind.
That being said, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I just think it's like as humans naturally compare to each other. And I honestly feel worse for the younger generation that you guys never had an opportunity to just not have a device at your beck and call. And I totally see especially now, I have my own business. I understand the importance of social media. My degree was in advertising and public relations. I love the idea of creating social media content and being like creating art, but that's the thing. I think people forgot to create and they got into overdrive of consumption and consuming, and then they became in this like trapped idea of who they needed to be while getting all of this information and comparing yourself. And I mean, Instagram, and when I was in college, that's when filters came about and Facetune, and it was like how many followers you got, how many likes you got, and you're automatically just like, oh, I'm like, you're already in this pressure of having to like be good enough for like your parents and your peers, but now you have the pressure of being good enough for the entire world and to be visible to the entire world. And like, I just think a lot of people don't understand the difference between understanding having like balance in having a smartphone and using it for a way that's bettering your life versus like using it in a way to make people think your life looks better.
Okay. And how about you?
For me, very similar. We know the saying, comparison is the thief of all joy. When it comes to smartphone, is really the social media component. I actually believe that each generation struggle with happiness in some capacity.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to social media and access to all this information, we get trapped in comparing ourselves to others and if we're not good enough. And so I think that is what brings it down.
Smart. And how about you?
I think it's kind of a really layered question that kind of requires more answers that we'll get into, but I think in essence, as a smartphone particularly has a lot of benefit, obviously, a lot of good, and then subsequently like iPads and other things, 'cause I work with kids on the spectrum, so it's a lot of good benefits with it. I think what I'm struggling with is kind of what you already mentioned as well, not to do side talk, but each generation kind of has their own thing. Our generation, we're growing up with smartphones, like everyone else said, pretty much in the pockets of our hands, or watches, or rings, or whatever. But before, a lot of this stuff was still happening before smartphones. It just wasn't being taken home or to the store. Like if it was high school or if it was middle school, it would stay there for the most part. So I just think that, is life better before a smartphone? Yes and no. I think I'm kind of in the middle. It's just different for different reasons.
How about you? Okay. How about you?
I think the statement is very vague. I think a smartphone is a tool. I think you could use it for right or wrong. And if we start talking about social media, of course, people have used it more for wrong. And I do want to say that I think it's great they're going for walks. I think, well, people get their ideas in the shower when they're working out because they don't have anything they're consuming. And there is a whole difference between being a consumer and being a creator. And I think if you're just sitting down on your phone consuming, you're gonna have that dopamine, but you're not creating anything, and that just leaves you empty, and it makes you feel just gross at the very end, and like, oh, I could have done so much more with my day. But yeah, I think even growing up, I didn't have a phone until I was 15, and I think it should be that way. I don't think kids should have a phone. Flip phone is fine for emergency contacts, but yeah, I remember living in apartments, and my siblings and I would sneak to the other apartment parks and just talk to the neighbors and stuff like that, and sledding and stuff like that. And nowadays, kids, the only thing they want and think about are technology. I want a phone. I'm 11. I want a phone. I want Instagram. Omegle is another one, like a website where young kids are being part of. And I don't think they should be exposed to any of that at a very young age. There's such thing as iPad kids, yelling. Oh, when they start yelling, here you go, here's an iPad. So you could be quiet, probably because it's easier for the parent, but it's gonna be too late when they find out that that's what's causing problems. Later when they get older, it's like, oh, I was an iPad kid, give me an iPad, and that was what shut the kid up, So that's why I think maybe life was a little bit easier and better before smartphones. Like you said, you take it everywhere. People literally have devices where they will put the phone on in the shower to finish watching a Netflix show, even on the toilet.
Quick question for everyone. Like the prompt said, do you think people were happier before smartphones? Just yes or no across the panel.
No.
Okay. What about you?
Yes.
Yes.
Happier, yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
That being said, we're going to bring up our actually maybe not solo disagreeer, because you disagreed too, and so did you as well, right? Yeah. So we're going to bring you up. I'm sure your feet hurt, but I am definitely interested to hear how people, weren't happier before. What's going on?
I stayed back because I think the question is subjective because everybody obviously has their own mindset and would handle things differently without their smartphone. I think smartphones make things so much more efficient. And I guess the real thing in the back of my mind, and I want to say everybody had valid points. I definitely don't super disagree with all of you, but just from the perspective of with just horrible world events going on and all the anxiety that can happen with that. Obviously your algorithm is your own, but I'm on Hope Corps side, and so I see all of this lovely stuff, all those guys who are on TikTok and giving opportunities to homeless people to get them back on their feet and stuff like that, and that brings so much joy to my heart. And I work in social media, so I do it a lot for my job, so I most neglect my own, but also I do love a good scroll, but I also do it in moderation. I have time limits on my apps, and sometimes I ignore them, but most of the time I try and hold myself accountable and disconnect.
Okay. Well, to start this off, I think the question I want to know personally, maybe it's selfish to know, but every generation says now you just pull out your phone and you do it versus going to the library. But when you had no idea what a smartphone was, did that seem extensive and hard to you, or did it just seem like how now we would be oh, I just look it up on my phone?
It was just the way things were done. It did seem hard. Happiness is very subjective. You got micro happiness, your own personal happiness, and then you got it on the macro level. I think on the macro level, human society was happier before smartphones because you've got all of these comparisons, you've got influencers, you've got videos, blah, blah, blah. It's made things even little things like dating, it's made dating infinitely harder. What did he mean by that text? That kind of thing. But also, I wouldn't have the opportunities back then that I would now. If I still had a flip phone, I wouldn't have made all these connections that I've made the past 4 years that have changed my life completely.
I love that point you made of on a macro level versus micro level. And technology to me is has literally, quite literally saved my life with I'm being type 1 diabetic. My insulin pump now delivers through my phone. I didn't have that resource when I was first diagnosed. But on a micro level too, it's we weren't taught. Our parents didn't know better. Our parents definitely did not know better. We were taught not how to have this access of information, and that access of information, it's not black or white. That's what's hard. I think there's the beauty of duality of how two truths can coexist. But I think a lot of people, especially maybe in older generations, kind of struggle with that acceptance of two truths being real.
I stepped forward because the question was, very basic. Do you think people were happier? I think that I brought that opinion from the aspect of, I kind of joked around with you. When we were growing up, if you were going to bully someone, you had to do it to their face. And I was thinking a lot about my kids. I have 2 kids, 23 and 22. And I saw what they went through growing up in the smartphone generation. There was the comparison crap. We didn't deal so much with that. You have apps. You have apps now where people can go in and talk shit to you anonymously, and kids are signing up for this. The bullying and the FOMO. All of that. I'm missing out on everything if I don't have a phone, and I just think that makes things a lot harder than it needs to be. But again, I do a lot on my phone. With work, I almost have to have one. And there is good things medically, like what you were saying. Some of that technology is absolutely life-saving. But that's the aspect I was going off of.
When it comes to social media as well, I wouldn't be in the place I am with sales if it was not for social media. I have so much of a following because of it. I can show who I am, what I do, and how to do it correctly. But at that same exact time, there's a lot of people who don't do it correctly, and they just spew out whatever they can because it's going to get views. But what I wanted to mainly get to is, and I'm curious of everyone's opinion, do you feel like you go through the day and then sometimes you stop and you realize the last hours, days, weeks, months have been a complete blur, and you're just oh crap, and that's when I shut my phone down. I'm like, nope. And
that happens regardless though, but just back in the day we had to stare at the wall.
I do want to pose an interesting question for the agreeers though, because we're talking about prior to smartphones, which inherently means less information in totality. That's why we're shifting, that we think everyone was happier Or do we really think if people were truly happier?
Like I said before, there's two sides to everything, and I'm really on the fence. For me personally, if I had grown up with smartphones, my life would have been miserable. I was bullied horribly in grade school, and to know that I could go home at night and be free, I could go on summer vacation and be free from that for 3 months was amazing. Kids are committing suicide now because their nasty classmates are sending them nasty messages and fighting with strangers on Facebook. That being said, as an adult, the smartphone and the social media has finally, number one, it's changed my life career-wise, and I'm going through what I call my creative renaissance, probably most of which would not have been possible without digital connections, like people like Katie. You know, Katie's a friend of mine. It would have been a lot harder, at least for me to have that journey. That being said, we're so dependent on them now. I literally cannot log into work without a smartphone. If I can't find my phone, I'm screwed. Then I'm late for work because I need the authenticator to log into my computer.
Can I cut in? Because I had something to say. I think that actually kind of applies to the question that you just posed. I think the difference in some of the things that we're talking is that, is it beneficial or is it happy? Because you guys are speaking on more beneficial. Because when it comes to happiness, the reason why I agree, yes, it's a very loaded question, but I see technology as very beneficial. Like, I work in supporting technology. It's very beneficial. But when it comes to happiness, happiness is emotion. If we're going out based on emotion, studies have shown that has actually caused people to have more anxiety, have more fear. Exactly. And that's purely the reason why I go before people were more genuinely happier, but technology is way more beneficial.
Yeah, it's the human condition. Yes. It's the human condition because technology itself is just hardware. It's what people can use it for bad, people can use it for good. Like I like all the medical stuff is amazing. I mean, people make apps for people. People make, really cool things for people who are disabled, or just there's so much cool, but we also have a negativity bias just functionally within every person that lives on this planet. Is if something negative happens, that's going to be the most recent thing in your head, and it's going to stick the longest.
How our brain is literally wired too, is that we are 2/3 already on, like our ancestors were literally fighting for their lives every single day. And then that fight or flight, like we're going to be chased by a bear, is from an email versus like an actual bear coming to come kill us.
It's just everything is transforming. It's not necessarily different. It's just different in shape and size.
So there's benefits versus happiness. The benefits have made my life better, which has made me happier. My creative pursuits have made me infinitely happier. The fact that I now have an ADD diagnosis, I have a diagnosis for the condition that has me use a cane that I was born with. Now that I have the tools that I need, I can use that to make myself happier, and I have the past 4 years.
One thing that you said as well, when it comes to your social media and what you're seeing on it, every one of our social medias, our FYPs or whatever it's called, it's going to be completely different. Mine's going to be bodybuilding. Yours is going to be I don't remember what we called it. What was it?
Hope Core, yeah.
We're all going to see different things. So like I just did a bodybuilding prep. And of course, when you're a bodybuilding prep, you're hungry. So guess what my entire feed was? Food. That was not fun.
And that's really interesting that you say that too, because you can actively change your algorithm just by interacting, staying on it. You're in an infinite loop.
And I think that's where people are starting to realize, like, oh, life is a mirror, and I'm projecting a lot of my own insecurities out there, and I can blame social media and I can blame all this horrible things I'm seeing, but it's you're choosing to interact with those negative things.
You got to watch who you hang out with. You got to watch who you talk to. Exactly. And we need more structure when it comes to technology. We need more structure for kids. As adults, we need to learn how to adapt and filter things out.
I will say, I think with social media or smartphones in general, with being a millennial and us having to literally learn how to adapt that in our everyday lives, it brought me back to the basics. It brought me back to wanting to go outside and walk like you do. I have a 3 on my hand because I journal every day, 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 intentions for the day.
But you also have to be self-aware enough to see that.
Yeah, and that was a whole nother thing, is that my family would make fun of me for being so self-aware, because I was the first one to go to therapy, and I was the first one to say, hey, I don't want to be divorced twice like both of you guys. So I'm gonna figure this out.
Dating is harder today than it used to be. We'll start by bringing up everyone that agrees now. Okay. I feel like I've seen this before. All right, so just so we can make sure we get you up here, let's just get a quick, why from everyone. So I'll start there and come around.
I think it's been harder now, especially because we have phones and social media, and we are able to see the way someone looks all the way down in Japan, or that's just more options, I guess you could call it. And back then it wasn't that way. It was just whoever was your neighbor, I guess, or whoever your parents decided and stuff like that. So it's all, for me personally, I'm a Christian. I do have preferences, and I know what I'm looking for, and I guess you could say that I'm more on the conservative side. I don't lean more towards one or the other. I disagree with both, but also there's things that I'm looking for, and a lot of Gen Z, I think, is very liberal, and there's a lot of weak men, and I'm not looking for that. And that means that what I'm looking for, especially Christian, I'm 21, and I just think it's super hard nowadays.
Yeah, I think it can kind of go both ways. Kind of like a lot of these questions, it's really vague. It's meant to be vague, but it can be easier in terms of that there's so many more ways to meet people, and then you can again meet someone who lives 2 hours away from you, 3 hours away from you. But I think kind of what we've already touched on before with the comparison and having had experience with dating apps, unfortunately, you'll see either you'll match with someone, nothing. You'll either match with them, talk, ghost, or they'll stand you up. And I think a lot of that comes down to the options that are available, or the, I guess, perceived options perhaps, is that there's just, again, such a wide array of people at your fingertips now. So you don't want to like settle, so to speak. And so maybe you're going really well with someone and then you get another match, or vice versa or whatever. And it's like, oh, this guy or this girl, whoever, is a little bit more attractive, a little bit better job, and you just start to do this like really fine comb through everyone's profile of like, well, they're not like this, and you might settle for someone who might look on the surface, but is actually quite the opposite.
Cool. How about you?
The reason why I feel like dating is harder now, just going with both of the points, is that we consume. So we consume so much. We want a bit of everything. We don't know what we actually want, and so it comes harder because now everybody's breaking everyone's heart, and we're all walking around with wounded hearts and not truly knowing who we want because of the wounds that we had before. And so I think it's a lot of empty substance and nothing real, and that's the reason why it's harder.
Okay, how about you?
Yeah. I'll do it from the millennial standpoint. Yes, to everything that you guys are saying, and especially hitting on people don't know themselves. And when people don't know themselves and you start to understand yourself and you try to communicate things with people who you've maybe been seeing for months on end, or you had a serious relationship with in a certain amount of time, and eventually you realize like, things are going to fizzle out. Things are going to get hard in relationships. And that's why people have such subsurface relationships, because the second things go hard, they know there's options. They know they can go on an app. You can go out and everyone's single now. Like everyone, not everyone, but like a lot of my friends not a ton of here in Nebraska, but like in big cities, there's really like not a lot of people that are following a conservative way of going about marriage and dating. And I've been guilty of both sides of being the one that has options, or being the one that's like, I just know that you're not wanting to grow because you have options. And so it's just this whole narrative of like understanding yourself so you can be with the people that will want to bet, like anything that you bring to them, they don't take personal, because it's just like you saying your standards and your boundaries. And it's not a personal attack on you guys. It's just a personal preference, to say the least.
For me, I would say there's too much openness of the relationships nowadays. And I think it pertains, again, to social media. If you come back to dating way back when, sorry, I'm just kidding. But back then, you talk to your friends, you talk to whoever is around you about your dating issues. Now, everybody has to know about your freaking relationship issues. Who cares? Keep it in your relationship, keep it to your close friends. It doesn't need to go on social media. And so that causes even more issues with dating. If you meet somebody like, oh, are we dating the same guy? Half those Facebook groups or posts that I've seen are not even productive. It's just talking crap on somebody on the experiences you personally didn't like about that person. They may not be the person for you, but they might be the person for somebody else. Right. And it gets abused way too often. So yeah, that's my take.
I think it goes back to we live in a world of instant gratification and consumerism. There's too many options, and the second somebody doesn't do what you want them to, it's the, well, somebody out there will mentality. I've got to be very honest. I don't date at this point. The apps are just a shit show, and there's too much. I'm sorry if you've said, hey, how are you to me, and then you send me a dick pic. I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that. I never wanted to see that, bro. Like, please, no. I don't want any part of it anymore. Like, I have plants and dogs. I'm good. But I
So
do
that's a
think
no.
that I just think it's just all a big mess. Like, and there really isn't, like, how many people do you know that you could look at right now and be like, are you absolutely committed to being monogamous for the rest of your life to this person? And if they're being really honest, not many people are going to say yes. They're going to be like, well, if something happened, well, I mean, and I think it's a crappy way to go about it. And no, thank you.
Yeah, I would say 99% of it is extremely difficult and a show. I'm about to give up. I'm still on one dating app, but there's so many reasons why it's awful. Number one, if you do meet somebody you're compatible with and that you like talking to, you get attached too quickly. You start to get to know them as a person before you ever meet them. And then when they turn out not to be this idealized version, it's a big letdown. So everybody's walking around with wounded egos and broken hearts. The other thing, too, is that creeps and perverts have replaced trench coats with dating apps now. The number of inappropriate messages and pictures and comments that I have received, mind-boggling. And also my age. When I was their age, and when I was in my 20s, my dating pool was almost limitless, and I had not great standards. Now, I have standards up to here, and the dating pool is like a puddle in the Sahara. Especially with having a disability, that's just one more mark against me. That just makes it infinitely more difficult. The only advantage to dating now is that if I exchange phone numbers with somebody, I can immediately Google his phone number and find out if he's married, engaged, sex offender, has a record.
So do you guys think that the standards are higher today than they used to be? I always hear the stories of how my parents' friends got to meeting. They're like, oh, well, we were doing this, and then we met. And there was no part where they're like, and then I surfed Instagram to see if there was anybody hotter, like,
broke up.
so do you think standards were higher or lower back then compared to now?
I think the standards are higher, but I think the bar is about right here.
Yeah, exactly.
Your partner won't always have every single thing you want in them.
Right.
And people expect that.
Hey, now's a great time to bring up everyone that disagree. I'm so sorry.
We got so into it again. Bring up the married one.
Tell us what you did.
Okay, so why is dating easier now than it used to be?
Well, I heard it many times. Like, there's so many platforms that you can date on, and I think that's the biggest reason why I'm like, it is easier. I think what I'm hearing a lot of is the quality of the dates you guys are getting is not great, but I think it's easier to date, and I think it's easier to nail it down exactly kind of what you're looking for, like those core like values that you have that they hopefully have, or like everybody has preferences. So yeah, you get to kind of like see a little bit of them or a little glimpse of them.
Yeah, so I will say, I saw one of my exes on my dating app yesterday, and I was like, I gotta see what she's got to say about herself. Like, oh hell no, no, this is not who you are.
She's crazy.
Exactly, and I'm like, no, you don't get, people put up a front. People don't actually show who they are until they're in person. There have been people that I've talked to on social media, like after a few days of talking, if I'm still like, you're kind of fun to talk to, let me get your number. Then we'll talk, then I'll come to meeting. Sometimes I'm having a great conversation for a week or 2 weeks, I meet them in person, oh hell no, I'm done, I'm good, I'm out. And that's why also sometimes if I'm going on dates, I like to just do it in the first week, get it over with, see if we actually match or not. But that could also be a bad thing, because if you rush things, you don't get to know them, then you're not giving them a chance at all.
I would rebuttal to that a little bit, because I feel like, and I'm speaking from my experience too, because me and my girlfriend met on Hinge, and also, God graced me with the stars, I guess. But, we've met like within a week, and I think, I think everything kind of like coming back around, we're losing this human aspect, but here we are, we're talking about dating, where we're taking the human aspect and saying we almost want that less human aspect of like trying to figure out who they are online. I'd rather be like, hey, what's up? Do a little chitter chatter for like a couple of days. Okay, hey, it's the weekend. Let's go. Like for me and her, we went to an arcade, and then we met there, and we just hit it out of the park. Now, that was probably luck on my side. Maybe it wouldn't have hit out of the park with someone else or for anyone else.
I think people really need to, like, one thing I preach, just, I have a lot of female friends. I was always friends with female growing up, so I didn't have many guy friends. So I guess my mind works.
That's good though, because that gives you insight and how to do it right and respect.
I know, trust me, I know. When you're dating, you have to go meet people. When you're doing the best that you can do for what works for your life, like I'm a gym guy. If I want to do my best and like focus on work as well, I just keep doing me, somebody's gonna come along. My last like successful relationship that lasted for 2 years, I found her at the gym of all places. And it was amazing. I kind of moved a little fast. She moved in after 2 months of being together and we lasted 2 years and I'd never been in a long relationship. My longest relationship besides that was maybe 3 months. And I was just like, I had just recently gone to therapy. I'm like, I'm fixed, let's go. And obviously it worked a little bit, but people tend to focus too much on finding them rather than finding themselves first.
Yes.
That's a great point. We're so focused on finding them, but not actually know who we are. And I think that's where it comes to the dating pool. Actually, I agree with your point. That's a great point. Dating is easier. The quality of the dates are not. But in reality, exactly, in reality, I was just speaking to a friend about this. I don't think in reality we were actually meant to be just, let me date. Because we have that intimacy. We want to talk. We want to be able to grow. We're looking at a future ahead. But as when we're continuing to just date and have a low quality of dating, that makes us feel more insecure about ourselves. Because we're going, what went wrong? I opened my heart up to this person. But when we're secure who we are, I go, nah. After one conversation, no, this is not it. Exactly.
Yeah. This is going to work out.
And you honor that person though, when you don't lead them along that way. You honor that person going, I know the security of myself, what I want and desire in a marriage, because I'm not dating to just be like, let me just date around. Yeah. I know what I want in a marriage. If you don't meet that, that's for someone else. By all means, great conversation.
Don't hold them from their future love.
Well, and I think a lot of things, going back to the topics of social media and having a smartphone and this and that, we are like losing the magic of like effort in all sorts of capacity.
Yep.
And especially being a female, I'm not trying to make this male versus female, but like the people that feel like they can have a chance are like the ones that are liking your story or the one responding to your stories on Instagram or the ones that are like sliding in your DMs like genuinely. And then it's like interesting because I think ego is the main reason why these relationships are failing.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
because you have a genuine interest in how that person is actually benefiting your life or how you're benefiting their life. It's like, what is this person gonna do and serve for me?
And it comes back to technology and getting that dopamine hit. The swiping is designed deliberately to get a dopamine hit every time you get a match. Bing, bing, bing. Just for reference, I met my ex-husband, 3 ex-boyfriends, and an ex-delusionship on dating apps. I'm 0 for 5.
Okay. And you're still going strong though.
I would like to say actually, I think I really like you bringing that up because like the swiping or, just any sort of function of like the next hit, like gambling, of course, the next pull of the slot machine, But to add on to that specifically, I think it's a lot of challenge avoidance or just like complete, just don't want to be challenged. Like I want my partner to challenge me. I want to challenge her. Obviously not indiscriminately about like, okay, why'd you put this as blue versus red? Actual genuine challenge to create that not only a stronger relationship, but be better. Yeah, growth. Hey, shout out growth right here in my shirt. But yeah, and I think that a lot of people on dating apps have a skewed mind or maybe are just plain ignorant that challenge is part of dating someone.
You're supposed to make each other better. You're supposed to make one another better.
And I do want to add that a lot of us see dating as the goal, and dating is not the goal. Why are you dating? And you might have different perspective on that. That's fine, but I think dating should be leading up to marriage. Yeah. Or hey, if you don't want to sign or you think of it just as a contract, that's up to you. But in my opinion, I think dating, the goal should be marriage. And there is also no such. I think in dating there's a lot of confusion and no clarity. And what I mean by that is, do you want to hang out? Okay, I could see that as we're gonna hang out, but that person could see it as a date, and then there's just confusion there, and there is no like, I think you're attractive, or don't even say that. It's more of like, hey, let's go get coffee. It's a date, at this time I'll pick you up. And it's just communication, you're right. And there's also no such thing as the one. And I think there's just so many expectations when it comes to they're not my person, or somebody else could do it better. And I don't think there's better, there's different. Someone that grew up with a different background than you may know how to handle things differently than you, of course. And also, the one is the one you decide to choose, the one that you decide to marry and raise kids with and grow old with. That's the one. And every time when there's like, oh, I have to find the one, well, guess what? The dating pool sucks, and there's no one that's perfect either. There's no such thing as the perfect person, Prince Charming, the one, and everybody's gonna fail you, especially your loved one.
I got a question for all of you really quick. Every person I've ever had of whatever the episode is, whenever dating gets brought up, everyone always says the dating pool sucks. But by nature, every single person that's ever said that is a part of the dating pool. So my question is, when you guys were younger, did you say the dating pool sucked, or did you even think about that?
The dating pool sucked, but I also had no standards.
Okay, fair. So then you guys, well, I guess you're already in a relationship. So.
But I mean, I've been in the dating pool. I've also experienced dating pool. I mean, maybe it's just another same thing, like it's the same thing, but just different. We have phones, technology that, again, just makes it so obvious and so impossible not to see how bad it is. Whereas back when it was just, okay, you know, we walk up to someone or friends of friends, you know, whatever, and that still happens, but it's just like, it's just not as up in your face anymore. And again, I think maybe having that barrier makes people feel more confident to show how bad they are. So maybe that could be a good argument as to why it's actually good. So then you avoid altogether getting a relationship with someone.
Last question I have for everyone is about social media. And it's just simply, do you guys care when you're either courting someone or you're with someone? Do you care what they post on social media in regards to, like I've heard someone say, your girl's not dating you, bro, she's dating Instagram because she's sharing every part with them before you. Do you guys care about that kind of things?
I don't, because I don't share social media with someone until I've established a relationship. I think it's too personal.
Okay, well, social media could be seen and taken differently. You think it's very personal. I don't think I don't have my stuff in personal. Mine is everything's public. And also, honestly, you have your account on private. Guess what? I could find records of you and just your history. And like you said, with phone number on Google. So with social media, there are things that I should, like, for example, for me and with my morals and values, I'm not going to post a bikini pic because I think that's just the only thing that I think my husband should be the only one to see that. And also, like, I kind of agree with you, Ryan, that some girls will post stuff like that, but it's also for validation. And it's like, my boyfriend could be saying all of this, and if I don't get it from my boyfriend or my significant other, guess what? Instagram is going to give me that dopamine.
Now you have all these people who the validation and the love and affection and adoration of their partner is not enough. Now it's like, great, I think I'm so glad you think I'm attractive, honey, blah, 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 blah. But I need to have, 25,000 strangers on the internet tell me I'm hot today because what you're saying isn't enough. And it is a problem.
I'm gonna step in really quick though, as a female. I think that we have been in this box that we need to follow in order to be respected or in order to be validated. And anything that I post now, you kind of get to like the age of 26, 27 and you realize, yeah, what I've been doing is like somewhat of a performance because that's what we're taught. But anything that I post now is for me. Anything I put out is for me. It's for me to understand that younger version of me used to be so scared of being visible. It's for that younger version of me who used to feel terrified of like not looking a certain way or not following certain beauty standards.
Being proud of
and now I don't like. It's almost like we are doing God a disservice by not showing. And I'm not saying showing our bodies and showing our like.
Okay, but if you were in a relationship and you guys were on a beach vacation and you were wearing a thong bikini and you thought you looked hot and he's like, God damn, babe, you look hot. And you took a picture like, and you posted it on Facebook, and all of a sudden all these dudes are like, oh man, look at the ass on that. And he said, hey, I think that's disrespectful. Would you take it down?
Yeah. But I've dated someone who was the one taking those photos. And then this was back, this is when dating is a mirror, by the way. We want to bitch about it, but like we literally are all mirrors of each other, and it's just data of your own that you haven't figured out.
I do want to say men are guilty of all these things too, just so we don't come off as biased.
Because I was going to say too, though, in that, because kind of like blending the two questions, I really don't think the dating pool sucks. I really don't say that. I think it's what we expect from dating does. And so when it comes to both like what we expect our partner to put on social media, like will we be offended? Well, what's the quality of person you're looking for? If you know them and that's how they're gonna act, that's what you're dating. And so even to your point about long term, my friends and the people I talk to all the time, what's the point of a long-term relationship? Are you committing or not? We have uncommitted people walking around saying, oh, I just want to date whatever people with no end goal. And so if you have no plan, it's going to fail.
I don't agree, because if that's what you both want, if you just want to date around, have fun. You know, that for me personally, my end goal is a long-term relationship, not marriage. Been there, done that. I raised my husband, sent him off to his forever home. I'm not raising another man. But another point, you said something about social media. You post on social media for yourself. And that was my point about privacy. It's not that it's literally private. It's that I post for myself. I post for my friends. And there's a level of intimacy there with a partner that you want to establish some real trust before you trust them with all of your old photos and all of your old posts and all of that stuff.
Before we go there, can someone please unpack for me? Because this is just another thing that I've sat through a lot of episodes. What does posting for yourself mean?
You're not doing it for the validation of others. You're not doing it for the likes. Like,
So you're proud of yourself.
exactly. Like,
It's like my bodybuilding. I post pictures of me. I posted pictures of my boxers. My ex-girlfriend, she's also a bodybuilder. She'd post pictures, and if you know anything about bodybuilding, bikini, they are showing full booty in the back. I don't care. I am not a jealous type. This is what she does. Like, when you're in bodybuilding, we don't sexualize the body at that point anymore. That is a sport. I'm seeing what you've done for your body and what you can do for yourself. So like, going off what you said to her, I respect your point and I respect your point as well. But for me personally, I couldn't care less what you post. Are you with me? Cool. Are you gonna cheat on me? No. If you cheat on me, bye. I'm not a jealous. We can go to the bar and a guy can buy you a drink right in front of me. Hell yeah, that's less money I'm gonna spend. I'm in. But some guys will be against what I say, and that's fine though. Everybody has their opinion of where they want to be.
You say it's for yourself and for validation for yourself. I could take a picture of my friends and I when we go to the pool, full body. Doesn't mean I have to post it. Hey, I've took that picture because I just want to have it, and I want to be able to look back and be like, I have that body, and there's no reason to post it. If you're gonna post it for you, for yourself, social media is for you, or just pictures in general, like, I don't know if this makes sense, but there's no need to post it then.
Yeah, that's what I was going to though, is that we're talking about you want to post it for the world to see for yourself, but why does everything have to be seen? But everybody's looking to be seen.
I recently saw this video on TikTok where this influencer saw that this man ended up climbing Mount Everest and saw the top of it. And it's like, other people's business should not be on my business. Like, I don't deserve to see the top of Mount Everest.
Oh, yeah, when he was like, I shouldn't be able to see that point of view because I didn't work for him.
People are more sensitive now than they used to be. We'll start by bringing up everyone that agrees now. So why are people more sensitive now than they used to be?
I think the newer generations, and this isn't everybody in these generations, but I think everything has become a little too serious. Everybody has their opinions and you're allowed to have your opinions. But now it's like you can't have that opinion. You cannot be who you are now. I may not agree or disagree with some people, but I can talk to somebody and they can have whatever opinion they want, whether, let's say political. We're not going to get political for the love of God, but left or right. I don't care what you are. If you got your opinion, you got your opinion. I'm not going to think any worse of you or any better. It's just that's who you are. If I say something offensive, I'm going to get canceled. I don't want to do, like right now I can't even talk, I don't want to talk political because I don't want to get into that and get canceled. That's just how it seems to be nowadays. For me, be a good person. My God, is it that hard? It's not.
I agree that people now are more sensitive, but that's not a bad thing. I think it's awesome. We're more educated, we're more aware, we're raising children better, we're not beating them with wooden spoons like I got. I have learned so much about myself from other people who have been learning about themselves in the past few years, and we're more sensitive to neurodivergent kids. We're more sensitive to LGBTQ kids. We're more sensitive to things like that, and that's okay. Because when we were growing up, we were the weird kids. Again, not going back to that, but life was difficult if you weren't exactly the way society wanted you to be. So the fact that people are more aware and more educated and more knowledgeable and more sensitive, I think is an awesome thing.
Yeah, so not a negative connotation.
It's not a negative context at all.
Okay, and how about y'all?
Being sensitive, you could see it as a criticism or compliment. I also think that if we start talking about the entertainment industry, let's look at the movies back then. White chicks, scary movie. You know, look at that kind of joke and that kind of humor. We don't have those kinds of those kinds of jokes nowadays in our movies. Why? Because you're scared of getting canceled. There's actors that have stated that they don't want to get themselves into that because of different people's opinions. And especially Hollywood nowadays, like, be careful with what you say because you could get canceled or you could offend someone. Okay, I'm sorry I made you feel that way, but it's also up to you if you want to get offended to that. It takes a lot for me to get offended. I grew up in a household with an older brother, so it was either you joke around with the siblings or you're gonna be the one crying, and it was always like that. And I am Mexican and I'm Latina, so I don't get offended to jokes about what's the joke about, like, what's your favorite sport, and it's like cross country or something because you're Mexican. What's your favorite like what's a Mexican's favorite sport or something?
Oh,
Cross country, like,
I don't know.
like
I've never
let's
heard
see,
that
like
one.
like stuff like that. I
Yeah,
think
we've
it goes
never heard
something
it.
around like that, or just like, I don't care if you cancel me. It's not the end of the world. Like, I will even cancel myself right now if you guys wanted me to. But it's just nowadays you just have to double think what you're gonna say. I mean, back then you were able to say a joke around the lines of "that's gay" or "you're a gay," and now that's not allowed. That's not acceptable. That's rude. And even if it's with your like homies or the people you hang out with, it's just nowadays you just have to be very aware of surroundings of where you're saying it, how you're saying it, and stuff like that. And
Okay, my turn. So I think sensitive is kind of a loaded term right now, especially just the climate and everything. I would like to say, rather than sensitive, just like more awareness, like being more, especially as a guy, like I'm very in tune with my emotions and how I act, and I would consider myself emotionally mature. Don't cancel me if I'm not my girlfriend. Yeah, I think it is overall a good thing. I think I can agree and piggyback on a lot of what the people saying is like, there's a certain point where we're overly sensitive to a point where we can't joke around or where we can't enjoy things, like especially white girls. Love that movie, it was great. It just shouldn't kind of encroach on everything, but we should be more inclusive and make sure everyone feels included without making them feel as if they need to be excluded at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
I agree that we're more sensitive, kind of going, it's layered, but and the reason why for myself is that I kind of agree, but the term I would use is empathetic. I think that we're more empathetic because we're more aware of how people could feel. And so I think it's important to have emotional understanding and how to emotionally behave. But when it comes to more sensitive, we choose to be more offended. It's because we'll say this ties to an insecurity or something I have a problem with, whereas the person who's relaying that may not know that, thus you got offended. And so even with the course joking, people may not say it here, but people are so afraid to get canceled because they're afraid of how other people feel. They're saying it behind closed doors anyway. I'd rather you say it to my face because it doesn't offend me. But I'm also very emotional. So I tell people to take therapy so you can understand how you're emotionally wired to be able to relay that. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you have to take offense.
Okay, and now I think is a great time to bring up everyone that disagrees. Now I owe you for leaving you back there for so long, so why don't you start us off?
Okay, so the reason I didn't step forward is because I think people have always been sensitive. I think our world in the United States has progressed so much. Legislation has been passed. Certain things are not allowed anymore. You can't be racist. You can't be like homophobic. But, you know, even like back in like 2010, what we saw on Glee, like that, stuff like that wouldn't slide. Like, yeah, I know it is. Me and my husband were watching. But yeah, I think we've always been sensitive. I think because we are so digitally connected, it's easier to see all of that now.
Yeah. Originally, when you first like asked the question, I like almost stepped forward, but then like Kim made the point that I was going to say is that in my personal experience, and this is going to be aired, but like the more sensitive types, I think we are saying is the younger generation, but it's because this younger generation is actually calling the older generation out on their bullshit. And they don't know how to take that as they take it as a personal attack and defending themselves and, well, you did this and you did, and it's like, whoa, no, we're just like for the first time saying like, this isn't okay. This isn't like, there's boundaries and people don't understand good boundaries. And then you try to set good boundaries and then you're the bad person.
Yeah.
And so like, I think we have been told, like even my family is like, Katie's the feeler. And I'm like, no, I'm just like literally telling you how I feel. Like you're feeling the same things, but you're calloused and you're numb. I'm feeling these things and I'm not afraid to say what I'm saying, even if you don't take it right, because I'm just being honest. But it's in a way of doing it and that's respectful and that's mindful and that's empathetic, but I don't think that means you're sensitive. And I think the older generation has a hard time of hearing things that they had to suppress from their family because they were gonna get beat.
We had to be hardened up.
Yeah, so I understand, like it's a gray middle zone of sensitivity, because I also do believe now that there are a lot of people who have the internet and use the internet as a mask so they can be more irresponsible, and then in turn there is sensitivity around that. But more or less, I think we've always been sensitive. I think it's just how the world is operating in a way of like self-awareness and understanding yourself at the end of the day is like, oh, feeling your feelings. We all have the same feelings as humans. We all are understanding that like, maybe we all have sensitivities, but those are all gonna differ based off of your human experience.
Mm-hmm.
This one gets me a little more riled up than the other stuff. I don't think it's sensitivity. I think it's awareness. And you guys talk about white chicks and Scary Movie. I grew up with Don Rickles and Blazing Saddles. I mean, I grew up in a generation where white people fluidly said the N-word and thought nothing of it. And there was no repercussions. You know, if you did anything dumb, you were retarded. If a boy did anything out of line, he was a fag. I mean, and it was accepted, but it was never right. It was never okay, but nobody did shit about it. And now finally we live in an era where people are being held accountable for their really bad actions. And, you know, now those people are calling other people too sensitive. We're not too sensitive. You're a piece of shit. And I'm sorry, but you know, you should have been held accountable all along, because this was never right. And now I just think people are being called out on it. And we are in a very volatile time, because as much as I don't want to get into politics, there's a lot of things being allowed to happen in government that have never happened before. And I'm sorry, guys, I went there. But I mean, we have some disrespectful ass going on. And now you've got these creepy, crawly Gen X and boomers coming out of the woodwork that are now all of a sudden like, oh, we can start doing this shit again. They're crawling back out, and I'm sorry, but no.
It's always been done this way, but now publicly. And that's what's even crazier is like, now this is public and we're the sensitive ones, the victims are the sensitive ones.
So, and I'd like to kind of go off of what you said too. So like when I was younger, I think younger me and now, we are two polar opposite people. I grew up extremely sensitive. Love my dad to death, but as a kid, he would tell me quit crying like a little bitch, because I would cry about everything. I was a show choir kid. I loved music my entire life, so I was automatically gay immediately. Yeah. I was a short, fat kid. That's all I got growing up. And as time went on, and I got bullied more and more and more. Yes, I got hardened, but at the same time, that f***ed me up for a really long time, because until I was, I want to say like 2021, I was hardened.
Your life was saying that to you.
Yeah. Well, and he's way better. He understands now that like, hey, that was kind of fucked up in me. I'm sorry, you're my first kid. I didn't know what I was doing.
We're supposed to evolve.
Yes.
And that's what we've done. We've evolved as a society, and they're calling it sensitivity, and it's not the same. We're supposed to evolve. The only sure thing in life is change. Yeah. And if you're not changing, you're standing still, and that's not what we're meant to do. Yeah.
So what was the end of your story? Because you had something a personal story going on.
But I had gotten older, and like I couldn't cry. Like I legitimately could not cry at all. It was bad. And I dove really bad into alcohol. I'd say from 21 to 25, bottle a day. I knew what a bar every single 7 nights a week. I know where to go. And I have a bottle in my car, and I go out and drink that in between because I couldn't afford it. And then I realized over time, I was like, there's something wrong with me. And I had gone to therapy, and I was like, okay, I got stuff wrong with me. And there's gotta be that middle ground of, I can't be too sensitive, but I still have to be a man. You have to find that middle ground. You can be a strong man, but you could still be sensitive and have emotion. It's finding that little piece in the middle where you have to be, and that's so hard for most people to find or even see that it's there.
Guys, when they have those stories, yes, we're made fun of as being sensitive. Don't cry. I was that exact kid on the football team. And so I'm crying. I'm going home. Mom, stop crying. And so when it comes to now, I'm very emotional. I accept that. Yeah, I still cry. I cry all the time. I think it's great. It's something to release from me. However, some of the things that you guys have mentioned, you said it before too in your opening reasons why, there is no one good. So some of the things that we're seeing the products of things we have allowed. Yes. Because there's no one good. And so when you're talking about evolving, I use the term growth. Yes, we're more aware because of social media, but when we're more aware because of social media, but if no one's good, we're using our own moral standard to say they're bad, but in reality, their moral standard are going, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. And so that is the reason why when it comes to more sensitive, what truly had changed in me, just like we were saying, the person I was before, very insecure, didn't like that person. But when it came to not only just therapy to understand emotionally how I'm wired, but it also came to my faith to understand how I'm identified. That made me see who I actually am.
And we now have to make that younger version of us proud. I did every single thing I told him I was going to do.
He's dead for me.
I do want to actually interject a little bit, since you brought up that I'm the only Gen Z on the panel, male. I would like to say I'm also very emotional, very in touch, like I said too already. I never really experienced any sort of bullying or hate from my family or anything about being emotional. I guess I don't know if I really showed it when I was younger, but I think something that I would even almost want to pose to you two, because you guys have experienced that yourselves, is to help my generation out, because the current generation of Gen Z, and I guess you could even lump in Gen Alpha, the misdirection and how to find that middle ground is not at all clear. And they are starting to hit the other pendulum swing where they're going way too far into an area where
I don't think everybody's going to find it. Not everybody's meant to find it.
Yeah, what is that area? I'm genuinely curious.
Okay, so I'll bring it up. The manosphere and the red pill type stuff, I think it's almost like kind of clinging on to like what you guys have said before. That's clinging on like the past almost, like, this really macho man, they don't see emotions, yet they say aggression, like anger. After
Everything was said and done and they were in private, they cried into their bottle of Jack Daniels.
And beat their wives.
It's just hypocrisy completely encoded in their DNA. But what I'm saying is, I just think that sensitivity is really important. But I think what is really important right now is teaching my generation, my fellow peers, friends, anyone that's even younger than me, that to be sensitive and how to interpret those emotions properly.
And learning how to express them appropriately. So I'm going to completely backtrack on what I said before. I actually think you're absolutely right. We were always sensitive. We were just never allowed or educated enough to express it. Like I said, grown men would not cry, and then they would go drink a bottle of Jack Daniels, and then they die at 52 from a massive heart attack because all of that stress buildup. Physiologically, we are built to cry because stress releases cortisol. Too much cortisol is toxic for the body. Tears release that excess hormone. So physiologically, it's what we're built to do. I just think that we are much more empathetic now, and I think we're teaching younger generations to be more empathetic. And I don't necessarily believe in cancel culture. I just believe in, maybe using the R word and the F word and the N word aren't okay, and calling people out for their behavior, And I have tried to call older generations out for behavior, and I usually get, I was in the car with my aunt, and she was screaming on the phone at somebody from her insurance company about her car, about a claim on her car. I don't blame her. I'm trying to drive, and I'm like, look, can you not scream? Because number one, it's literally hurting my ears, and number two, it's very triggering for me. And she said, stop using that word. I hate that word. You're so sensitive.
I think in that, I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off. It's just because I want to quickly answer it, because it's something that we are seeing with the guys, especially of your generation. But even in that, what you're speaking about, calling out the people who still do that. Absolutely. But honestly, in my mentality now, let the blind lead the blind. They don't want to hear it anyway. And so there's something in them that has to change. And what you're saying, how to help the men of your generation to not fall into that trap, are you being discipled?
Well, no, but...
Is there someone over you that's able to teach and guide you?
Like right now?
Yes.
Myself.
Unfortunately, that is the problem. people take social media and go, oh yeah, I idolize this person because they're speaking of the emotions that I feel. But in reality, when you have someone to help teach you, and when it comes to us stepping into your generation to say, hey, how can I help bridge that gap? Is the reality that men of our generation need to be able to step in. You guys need to be able to want it and not idolize these people online. Or there's gonna be no change.
Just want to be, I guess, a little more clear. I guess when I like kind of call to action that I kind of tell you guys, it's not necessarily to, you know, hover over these kids or, you know, really particularly be in their life, but just keep setting that good example, you know, keep being you, because eventually that's just gonna, you know, replicate itself, because any disagreement, and we've already talked about it, you're not going to be able to change someone's opinion, especially if they're following, you know, Andrew Tate on Instagram and thinking he's like the badass of the world because he has, you know, 10 Bugattis.
But he's speaking to men's insecurity.
I think we need to change the word sensitive, because like I said earlier, we are sensitive, but like being emotionally aware, being emotionally intelligent, being not even intelligent, because a lot of people can be really intelligent in how they act and they still won't change. But and it makes them even more, like even kind of more f***ed up a little bit, because they're being very strategic and being very manipulative on how they're acting because they're so aware of their own patterns, and then they call you the sensitive ones. But I will say, like, being emotionally regulated is key. And regulation, like if your nervous system is regulated, then you can take you can take feedback without taking it as like, oh my God, I am a horrible person. But it's like, I understand how this all came out to be because look at how it started.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit more to what you guys were saying about, like, you guys were raised saying, like, with parents and guardians stating, like, hey, like, stop crying, or, you know, I don't want you guys to just, I understand the point you guys were making, but also it's not just men. I think for me, I was raised also in a household where it was like, stop crying, or I'm going to give you something to cry about. So that was the kind of parenting that I had. I love my parents. They're great. They were there providing, but they were not there emotionally. So now it's my job as an adult to go out there and figure out, like, what I want to do for my life.
We have to parent ourselves
all
now.
of that kind of stuff, you know, being aware, and especially with all of that. So also I want to go back into, like, okay, millennials or even Gen Z are having kids, and just the way they're parenting their kids. I'm not a parent. I can't speak for a parent, but I am a nanny, and I worked with families and with different types of parenting styles. And I think there is such thing as gentle parenting. And also, I'm not okay with that, really. I don't think you should be hitting your kids. I don't think that's okay at all. I think there is such thing as discipline, and you should be disciplining your kids. And I think, of course, not with wooden spoons, like you stated beforehand, or with a belt. You know, I mean, of course, we could look back and say, like, hey, like, where I come from, a belt was normalized. Hey, but the way that I was disciplined was out of anger, not out of, like, love. Hey, I'm going to discipline you so you learn what you did was wrong. So I do think that nowadays, if you discipline your kid in public, hey, you're a horrible person, don't do that, I'm going to call police, I'm going to take out my phone and record you because what you're doing is wrong. And it's like, no, I'm disciplining my kid, because if I don't do it, nobody else will do it.
So piggyback on that, I think you can discipline your kids without traumatizing them. Okay, so shameless plug. At the Omaha Film Festival, there was a movie called The Only Way Out Is Through by an acquaintance / friend, Kieran Thompson. He made an entire movie about this very topic and how repressed men get and how they have to hide everything, and they're getting so unhappy and so depressed. And his inspiration was from a friend who tried to commit suicide. So he was unsuccessful. He said, okay, we're going camping. We're going to sort this out, because he said there's something about a campfire that makes men open up. And this movie is a very intimate portrayal of men opening up to each other, letting those emotions out, letting themselves cry with each other and not feeling shamed for it. And it's, you know, if you're interested in this topic, and if you're interested in men's mental health, I highly recommend the movie. It's making the film festival circuit right now, but hopefully it'll be streaming.
So there's a group, what is it exactly called, so I don't mess it up? Is it just Men of Omaha. That's how me and him had actually met. And it's just a group of guys who come together and we just talk about our feelings, who we are, open up, get vulnerable, and actually talk about everything. And not just, we are men, it's talk about ourselves.
Discipline your kids in public is so different from like in private. If you want to discipline your kids in private, I think that's fine. But when you add the social aspect to it, you're creating a traumatic event, even if it's like not, you know, like severe, like the social stigma and the social eyes and pressure, that kid is going to have a you know, negative consequence from that.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I didn't mean like, hey, pop them in public, you know, like don't do that. I like it's more of like, hey.
Or do you mean just like verbally?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Don't hit your kids in public. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a parent. I'm not gonna do that to my kids, but I don't recommend it either from what I've seen. No matter how bad they are, there's always gonna be some subconscious thought behind like, oh.
Get back to me when you have a toddler that is running wild in the store and absolutely will not listen to you. And as soon as you go up to them and tell them we're leaving, they start screaming like they have been beaten within an inch of their life every hour on the hour since they were born. And everyone in the store is staring at you.
I hadn't heard from you in a while. I was wondering what was cooking up over there.
My last thing too, it's like, I think vulnerability is something that needs to be admired, and it's kind of hot, especially for men. So if you want to be more vulnerable versus sensitive, like I highly, highly encourage that.
It's more manly nowadays to be vulnerable.
And if you go to therapy, that's an added bonus. But anyway, like the reason why our generation really had to be the ones to destigmatize it was because we had to look at it as not being fixed. It's a brain coach. What creates our reality? Our brain. We can say all these things and have these beliefs, but no matter what our brain is telling us to do, subconsciously we are acting out of that part of us versus our conscious mind way more. So go to therapy.
It was easier to figure out life in previous generations. We'll start by bringing up everyone that agrees now. I guess I'm just going to start with our solo over there.
I think it is easier. It was easier back then, especially with going all the way back to just how households were went with the gender roles with women and men, and having a leader of the home being the one that provided, and that would be the husband, and the woman would stay home and take care of the children, and they would survive out of one income. So I think that was just, if you look back at history, that's kind of just the way it was. If not, let's look at arranged marriages, you know. But yeah, I think it was easier back then.
I think it was easier back then because the families actually communicated. They sat down, you had meals together, they prayed together, they talked together, and they were able to teach skills in each generation down, whereas today we are more separated and we stay glued into our technology.
How about you?
Yeah, I think it was easier because I think the paradox of choice is really real. And we were the generation that was like, these systems aren't working. And then we have to be the generation to question why these systems aren't working, while also being the generation that's criticized for questioning it in the first place. And so I think we got kind of put in this role of having to be millennials, or the new millennium. And that new millennium was going to be something that was exciting because of the internet and all these new opportunities. But then we were introduced to survival through 9/11, and then the economic crisis in 2008, and then the pandemic, and just all of this stuff where we were kind of expected to know how to operate without having people question like the normal way of doing things, I suppose. And so we had less structure, more choice, and kind of more pressure just to get it right, even though we're seeing like the after effects of how they were doing it before. And to me, I didn't want to see how a lot of the people in my generation before, I didn't want to end up like them. So there was just a lot more pushback, I feel like, in our generation when we did things differently.
So I do believe that it was a little bit easier for the sheer fact of there was structure before. It was, you go to high school, you graduate, you go to college, you get your degree in whatever that degree is going to be in, you get your job. Everything was survivable wage back then. Now, the wage to buying things gap was so small back then, you could have lived on one income. Your family is going to be fine. You can have multiple kids, have as many as you want. I mean, most of our grandparents probably had, 6, 7 kids, and that was normal. Try having one. We can't afford anything. And I mean, college at this point, I feel like has become almost unnecessary unless you're a doctor, lawyer, or some like very big, hard, not a normal career. Now, if you're just trying to do a normal career, I feel like you have to work 10 times as harder just to get to a certain point. I'm lucky I'm in sales. I'm good at sales. I can talk my way into making more money. Most people do not have that luxury that I do.
And now is a perfect time to bring up everyone that disagrees. I'm going to start over here with Gen X.
Somebody mentioned structure. There's a reason we're called the feral generation. That's not facetious. We really were feral. There was no structure. We were expected to go to school. We were expected to come home and do our chores and go to bed and do it all again the next day. That's the only structure we had. Otherwise,
And nobody knew where we were.
and nobody knew where we were, and nobody cared where we were unless we didn't show up at the end of the day. There was no structure in the 70s and 80s.
Some things were easier. I mean, some things were easier. And I understand the younger generations think that economically it was better because houses were cheaper and cars were cheaper and things like that. You also have to understand that income was not nearly what it was now either. So, I mean, I can tell you that nobody I knew had parents, outside, maybe one or two people had parents that were making 100K. You know, and I'm not addressing just you exactly, but I'm saying, and I get that, but you could buy a house for $120,000 in the early 80s, you know, or even maybe up until the 90s. You know, I know our family home, both my parents passed away, and I know I sold our family home in August. And I think my parents had paid $130,000 for it, and I sold it for close to $300,000. You know, so I do get those things. However, there's also a lot of things that are variables there too. People tend to make a lot more money now. Women are expected to work now.
They don't have any
in most, you know, in most families, unless you have a very professional man. Most women aren't going to stay home and take care of the family anymore.
Most people can't afford to do that.
I said I disagreed simply because I believe every generation has had their and it was boomers that started feminism.
It was boomers. It was our mothers that started feminism,
that
and
all ran out in the streets and burned their bras and had some kind of fit.
You guys might have choice. You can literally do, male or female, do literally whatever you want. When we were growing up, we were expected to go to college. You go to high school, you go to college, you get a job, you have kids, you die. Basically just following right in the steps of boomers. Our boomer mothers said, F that, we're gonna make a change. And so we were caught in that transitional period where they were trying to figure themselves out, and then we in turn had to figure ourselves out because they didn't have the time or the resources to make sure that, you know, they couldn't walk us to school. I walked a mile to school when I was 6 years old.
And a foot of snow, right?
Uphill both ways.
No, I did get caught in a rose bush once, though.
With smart shoes.
The fact that you guys have, Google didn't exist when we were growing up. We had to use a card catalog, or we had to write to the newspaper and say, hey, can you help me? There was literally a guy at the newspaper who would help you find stuff.
There was encyclopedia salesmen that would come to your house and try to sell your parents sets of encyclopedias.
You have any piece of knowledge you want at the touch of your fingertips on a phone. You don't even need a computer.
Oh, can you rephrase the prompt, please?
Yes. Or it was easier to figure out life in previous generations.
Yeah, and that's kind of the reason why I disagreed initially, is because easier now, but it's so not directed. It's very fluid, unstructured, and the options are pretty much limitless in total. I mean, we've talked about you can be an influencer, you can be X, Y, and Z, you can do X, Y, and Z, you can do whatever you want. But I mean, human choice is such a hard thing. And when we have an array of options that aren't so easily choosable, we just put our hands up and like, I don't know what I want to do or how I want to do it, or college, or I want to be an engineer, I want to do blue collar. No one knows what they want to do because there's so many options and there's no good like pathway. And if there is a good pathway, the financial benefit's not there. It's hard, it's taxing. There's just so many other factors to it that are just simply, you just can't put down on one piece of paper.
Okay, and how about you?
I disagree with the prompt because in the world that we live in that is so technologically advanced, like there is a wealth of information that we have at our fingertips. And like somebody mentioned earlier, you don't have to go to college because there's so many free courses available. There's so many courses that you can pay for the fraction of a cost from college. You really can do anything you put your mind to, especially in the world of like social media, and even like as small businesses and corporate brands, like everybody's on social media and they're like making even more of a name for themselves, getting their name out there. And, you know, the best way to like get opportunities is networking and meeting new people. And we have social media where you can connect with almost anybody in the world. So that's my take.
So what I'm hearing is like, from one side was no structure, and now from the other side that believes that it's not easier, it's maybe there's too many options. Does anybody have anything they heard during the opening statements that were just like, yeah, that's not true?
I think it's opened it up a little bit for me in my head too, hearing on your guys' end versus your end too, because yes, it was more structured, but also it was less structured at the same time. I think it's just there was the overall structure of this is how you're gonna live your life. But when it came to the minuscule things, it was figure it the hell out. Exactly. For you guys, it's here's everything in the world, figure it out, have fun. Yeah. And we got to figure it out.
It was expectations versus structure.
Yes.
Exactly.
We were expected to act right in school. We were expected to come home when we were supposed to come home. We were expected to get good grades and do whatever and blah, blah, blah. That was the expectation. And yet we were just out there feral. No one knew where we were, what we were doing.
And then we were expected to go to college right after high school, even if we weren't built for college.
Yeah. I love that you said structure. Just because it was back then doesn't mean that there isn't any now. For example,
It's a different kind of structure.
for sure. But structure is still structure. And what I mean by that is my parents expect me to have good grades, to finish chores, to be home at a specific time. I still live with my parents. I think that is a very wise thing to do if you're trying to save money, and living with your parents it's amazing. And of course, but also, oh yeah, but also with living with your parents, there are expectations. And that's where it's either like you live with your parents, or what was the saying that I saw on social media, that's you don't pay with money, you pay with your mental health. And I'm just like, okay, I could kind of see that, you know, but there are expectations still. And even if you become, or you turn 60 and your parents are still alive, like your parents still have expectations, and you're gonna have expectations for your grandkids, you know, and that's never really gonna change. I just think it depends on the family.
And I think too, like being in the middle of this too, as a millennial, we had those expectations, and then it was like we had this opportunity to do things differently, but automatically if we were to do things differently, there was complete pushback.
I feel like we split down the middle of some of us went this way, some of us went that way.
Yeah, and like if you were going towards a non-traditional path, like there was absolutely going to be someone telling you everything that was going to go wrong because of that.
You don't go to college, you're not going to be successful. I heard that nonstop.
For Gen X too, we were expected to go to college, and if you don't go to college, you're a loser. If you decide to become a plumber, then you're a loser. Now,
And it's great because I make more than both my parents now.
exactly. Now you can be anything you want with no prejudice. A good friend of mine is full college professor at UNO with a PhD in ancient Greek history, and her son is a plumber, and she encouraged him every step, or no, sorry, electrician, not plumber. She encouraged him every step of the way.
The trades is something that I think a lot of people should really think about, because that's one of the few things that, like, with all the technology coming out nowadays, you can't get rid of it. It is a job that is not going away, just like me being in construction. Well, that one can be at some point if technology gets good enough. But for now, I'm good for now.
I just want to chime in just for a bit, because a couple things that's been mentioned is both about technology, information that we have a vast of, also expectations and structures of the household. The reason why I agree that you guys' generation or the previous generation did have it easier, just because it's more information doesn't mean it's beneficial. And just in the same manner we were talking earlier, it's an overload. And so I see this in with students, I see this with different kids of they have so much, they don't know what to do. And the problem is there's a disconnect with families. And so growing up, and it depends on culturally where you grew up at, one of the things is that the grandparents taught the younger generations, this is the skills I learned. Whereas now there's so much information when it goes, we get thrown at us. We don't really get that structure of like, hey, how do you apply it? Just because you know something you don't know how to play it doesn't mean anything. It's just like with someone with all the credentials, but they have no experience. And so that's the reason why I think it's more difficult now in that.
It's easier to find the instructions, though, to do what you need to do. Whereas if we wanted to do something, we had to seek out somebody who also did it and become an apprentice or become an intern and work our way up.
I will rebuttal that, though. There's also the same time of, yes, we can look it up, but there's 50 different ways to look it up. And most of them could be wrong, and we don't know. There's no way for us to know until we screw it up.
I think we're seeing kind of that contrast between where there was nothing, where you had to basically find someone who was a professional in something, a professional encyclopedia reader, perhaps. Whereas we are maybe all considered professional encyclopedia readers, but do we have the competence to scroll through a Google search and see, okay, the first post literally says, I don't know, let's say, how do I become a plumber? The first says, take this 20-hour course and you're a certified plumber, versus here's a MCC course of how to jump into being a plumber. Because Google will also, the companies can pay to post their, at the top, sponsored posts. And obviously, human psychology, the first post is always gonna be, first 3, I think it is gonna be the most clicked or, approach.
One thing I do like about our generation, millennials specifically, is that we got to dabble in with the analog world leading into the digital world.
Yep.
And that gave me, I feel like, a different perspective on like understanding the importance of both and utilizing the importance of balance with all of it, and having like, okay, we were the generation that was introduced to like internet exponentially going up.
And you were exposed to it earlier in life too than we were. The very first time I got on the internet, I was 20 years old when I got it, and with an AOL disc. Nobody knows what that means. Yeah.
And I will say though, the problem with that, with I think what our generation suffered with, is that dopamine is the chemical that's released with social media and scrolling. And it's equivalent to smoking, it's equivalent to alcohol, it's equivalent to gambling. And then there's restrictions on ages for those people that are doing all of those things. And then here you go. I got my first phone in 5th grade, which I was like one of the first girls to have a phone in 5th grade, which was crazy, first person. But like, you don't understand what it's doing to your brain. And then you have to figure out like, oh my God, why am I like...
But would we rather have a dopamine hit from information overload, or would we rather have a dopamine hit from smoking weed and drinking in parking lots after dark like we did?
I think we all need to learn control at the end of the day.
And balance.
And balance.
But I think the difference in that is that typically people will start experimenting with those things about teenage. We're talking about 2-year-olds having it. We're talking about people who are 4 years old, where school districts are saying, here goes an iPad. And so you literally rewired your brain and you're growing up that way. I think the best way, I think you mentioned it, networking. We talked to one another before. And when we talk to one another, you was able to help guide and actually, so if someone's going down, let's say, a wrong path, or you're starting to be glued to technology, if you have these relationships where people go, hey, why don't we do this? Now you're literally rewiring your mind, going with the dopamines, the science that shows that when you're actually interacting outside of those things, you rewire your mind. Your brain literally wires itself in whatever it's interacting with.
You don't have to leave your house anymore. You literally can work from home, take classes from home, have all your delivered. You technically don't have to leave your house.
Which is amazing for people who struggle with things like that. With every generation, there's 2 sides to every coin. So, with the boomers had structure, or even before the boomers, wife stayed at home, man went to work. But how many women were unhappy? They call it mother's little helper. They're talking about benzos, because so many women back then took them because they were so miserable and bored and unhappy. You have the option now. Like, I had a millennial friend who stayed home while his wife worked, and he loved every second of it.
Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. That support helps us keep building a platform where real conversations can happen. Comment what topics you want next. See you on the next one.